I wanted to show off a cool discovery I made. As you know, in Map Mastery, I had to remove this blocker from the island, which prevented Murray and Bentley from standing on it. Same for the one over there. However, I did this just by pushing it way under the map. What I really wanted to do was figure out exactly how it worked. So I went back to its location in memory and had another look around. Eventually I noticed this here. A 2, a 9, and an 8. To most people, that means absolutely nothing. But I know that 9 is the entity ID of Murray, and 8 is the entity ID of Bentley. So, what I tried was removing the 8 and setting the 2 to a 1. And now, Bentley can access it. But if we go grab Murray, he still can't. So then I tried changing the 9 to a 7. Now if I try to go as Murray, it works. But 7 is the entity ID for Sly. So I switched to Sly. And now, Sly is blocked. He can't get on. So this list in memory here, I didn't know how long it could be. I assumed pretty dang long. Is a list of entity IDs that could not pass. Just to confirm my theory that it wasn't just characters, I changed the 7 to an F44, which, if I'm remembering correctly, is the entity ID for the music box. Yep, and now the music box cannot enter. Bloop. It can't enter. And if I change the F44 to 245, go back to the safe house and grab Bentley, then his sleep darts now can't pass through. But Bentley can. So now, if you're anywhere in here, sleep darts just instantly hit something. But yeah, it's a selective collision blocker. Oh god, what is this spawn? Hello, I found myself a loop. Anyways, this was cool to figure out. And all I needed to really do to disable it was bloop. And there we go. I didn't have to push it under the map. I could just disable it like that. Sometime later, I was working on Map Mastery some more, and I wanted to get rid of these lasers. Which I did. No lasers here whatsoever. But then I realized, at a much later date, that if I threw this guard into where the lasers were, he still got burned. At first I thought, okay, my method of disabling lasers doesn't work on guards. So I set the hard-coded damage type and amount for lasers to 0. So they should do nothing. But here's a recreation of exactly what happened. Nothing. He still gets burned by fire. Then I realized this system bears a strange resemblance to the Episode 2 island blockers, but in reverse. Kind of. Instead of collision, it's damage. So it took a bit of work, because I couldn't directly find it by touching it, but I did find this wall in memory. It doesn't have an entity ID list, but it does have this 1 and then a 3A. So I thought 3A was the entity ID of the guard. So I set this to 0. But now Murray gets burned by it. What's the deal here? This shouldn't have affected Murray at all. I then realized this was not a list of things to block. It was a list of things to exclude blocking. A list of things to attack. To actually have get burned. Exactly how the Episode 2 blockers do it. But what is 3A? 3A is actually a bit field. And the 4th bit controls characters. I believe it was 3-2 that made both Murray and guards affected by it. And it was 80 or above that made no one affected by it. So that was pretty cool. But what I didn't understand was, why couldn't they have just used the system how they did on the blockers? They had already programmed something that accepts entity IDs in a list. So if they only blocked the guard, that one flashlight guard, from... I should also mention, before I continue, I can't believe I forgot this. I did a test on this Swarmer guard up here. He's not affected. Only the flashlight guard is. So if they wanted to prevent the flashlight guard from going through past this wall, why not just put his entity ID in that list and just use that kind of blocker here? Got a bit upset by that, slept it off. The next day, I realized, wait a minute, this memory region does look a bit familiar. In fact, it looks almost the same. In fact, if you remove this bit field list, and then put a 1, and then a 9, doesn't it look exactly like the Episode 2 blockers? And, yeah, it acts like it too, just with damage. If I then remove the 9, I can walk through it. Add the 9, I can't anymore. Then I realized that, what am I doing? Of course, this is literally the same as the blockers, because everything in the game has a damage plane. So if you set the damage collision type to 0, the amount to 0, and the type to 0, then go back up and prevent Murray from entering, it's just the island blocker, the same tech. So why did they use a separate bit field system for anything at all? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they were trying to accomplish with that. Maybe there's some coding edge case I'm not realizing. To show that this is really the same thing, and it's any entity, I'm going to kill the guard. I am going to find the entity ID for this barrel. (5EB4). 5EB4 is the entity ID for that barrel. 1. 5EB4. Remove the bit field. Now, I can pass through it, but I gotta remember to change the collision, turn the collision back on, remove damage. No, the barrel can't pass through it. In fact, every barrel can't pass through it. Boom. But if I set that back to a 9, then the barrel can pass through it, but I can't. And the box can. It's the same thing. So that begs the question. Can this use a bit field instead? It turns out, yes, it can use a bit field. Remove the entity ID list. 1, 3A. Find the damage, which is here. It's set to be solid, with a default of 10 damage. Change its type from 0 to fire. Now let me go grab Murray and find a flashlight guard. And boom. It's the firewall. In fact, I later realized that if we look at its class address, which basically points to the code that it uses to determine what it is, this island blocker is 2CAF88. And that wall behind the lasers is F88. They're the same thing. That unfortunately means if you're using the entity ID system, you are limited to 4 entities. Because this is still reserved for the bit field list, even if it's not in use. For example, if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if I set this to 6, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, and 9. It appears to be working. But if I change the 9 to a 0, it still works because this is the bit field list activating from the 3. It's no different. So, that is something cool that I found. These 3, the 2 island blockers, and this wall, are the only 3 in the entire game that I found so far. But then I realized, do other damage planes have this? And no, water does not have it, normal damage planes don't have it. But interestingly, lasers have it. Here is the set of lasers that I disabled earlier. And you see down here, there's a 1 and a 33. I'm not sure what the 33 is. It's an odd number, so it can't be a bit field. But the 1, if you disable that, no damage. Flip it back to a 1, damage. Flip it back to a 0, no damage. This 33 is obviously something, because if you set it to like higher, 34, it does damage again. Still, you know. But set it to 80, no damage. So I'm not really sure what that's for. Maybe it's just a very, very, very long bit field. But then I realized, wait, this has the gap up here for the entity ID list. Could I use that? So I set it to 1 and then 9. Murray can get burned by the lasers. But if I change this to 8, he can't get burned to it anymore. Burned by it. So they could have used this system for lasers. I guess they just had a reason not to. But yeah, entity ID list works with lasers too. And yeah, we're both invulnerable to the lasers. This set in particular. But the firewall will still get him. I should also mention that the firewall here, you can still carry guards through it. And the guards temporarily gain Murray's immunity to the wall, so I'm not really sure why the wall is here. But yeah, I found that lasers, the episode 2 blockers, and this strange invisible wall here have selective damage abilities. That would be the end of the video if I didn't find one more thing. The entire reason I suspected that lasers might have this when no other damage plane it does is Cairo. If you've ever gotten out of bounds in Cairo in free roam and gone to these lasers, you'll know they don't deal damage. For the longest time, I thought that these were just decorative objects made to look like lasers. But I found these lasers through other means. There's a bunch of zeros here with nothing. A bunch of zeros here, nothing here. But if we set a 1 and a 7 for Sly, boom, he gets burned by them. They're actually real lasers. Set it to 8, nothing. Set it to 7, he gets burned by them. Alternatively, we can use the bit field list, 1, and then leave it blank. Except, doesn't use that. It actually uses this here. Its list is lower down. So I guess you could use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 entities in the list. Unless it still caps it out at 4. Unfortunately, I can't move any flashlight guards into this easily. But yeah, it works the same way. At long last, after like 20 plus years, we can get burned by these lasers in Cairo. The Map Mastery mod's next work-in-progress update has that wall in the water pump room disabled. And I wish I could say the laser changes were useful, but I just removed the lasers anyways, so... I guess I'll be on the lookout for more of those walls now. I know how to find them. I just wanted to show something cool that I found, and I think I showed that off quite well.